we got to adjust the centering spring. Oh, this is not going to start without the electronic thing. And at this point, I'm in the final stages of getting this thing ready to go to the cage guy and get the cage in it. So let's finish off these last couple things and get this thing running so I can drive it onto a trailer. And after the first two goes with the belt, I decided that it was somewhat easier to just do it from under the car from the get-go. And, oh, you know, this is probably going to be the one that works because I didn't bring the wrench to tighten the, you know, the thing with the stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I know English. The tensioner, belt tensioner is the word that I look for. And it turns out that the wrench that I was using on my belt tensioner had enough torque to loosen the slightly stretched old belt, but didn't have enough torque to actually allow for to loosen the tensioner enough to put the new belt on. So one extra specialty tool later, I now have a serpentine belt tool, and that I fussed with it for 30 minutes with the old wrench, and that took like 15 seconds. So, which means it's time to bleed the brakes, which means I've got my brake fluid out here, and I've got my handy dandy power brake bleeder, although there's some old brake fluid in here. I suppose I have to get rid of this first.
Heart overhead, and I guess I love to watch the way you make me into a mess. I miss you missing me like you used to, yeah, like you used to.
And for the first time in forever and a day, the car's back on the ground. I skipped all the brake fluid stuff because it's repetitive. Alright, so I guess we can put the battery cover back in place because we're going to need the battery to crank the engine for the, you know, that stuff. Bleeding the power steering fluid. So, turns out that Phil has some idea for car names. One of them is Hocus Pocus, although I think he doesn't actually want me to do that because I'd simply tell everybody that I was the magic man. Now you see me, now you don't. And I think people would get sick of that very quickly. The other thing he thought of, which I thought was very clever, was general anesthesia, the general anesthesia, whatever that word is, the general anesthesia, because we're going to put everybody to sleep with my driving, which actually might be fairly appropriate. So, and it's medical, and we're both medical, so we gotta love it. And the torque setting for these is an absurdly low 9 pound-feet, which is easier to translate into inch-pounds. So, mother! That fell out in a convenient place. I also have to figure out some way to secure this because the existing thing is meant for a battery that's full size. I think I can just slip a... Oh, grease. I think I can just slip a longish Yes, one of those metal hose clamp things around it, and that'll work. Alright, well, the sparking was a little worrisome, but I don't think I've fully let the smoke out. Let's face it, most electronics run on smoke, and once the magic smoke leaves, you can't put it back in again. But I think that that's a little bit of sparking, but hopefully that will just be a grounding issue and nothing was harmed in the making of those sparks. Alright, time to get it out of the hole, because the next step is to torque the axle nuts down, which it should be on the ground for, and bleed the power steering fluid, which apparently requires it to be running. So I says to myself, Self, why did that tire seem to want to pop outwards when I dropped some weight on it? And the correct answer is that the damned lower control arm just blooped right out of the bottom of the steering knuckle for whatever fucking reason, which means that the torque spec that they gave me is bullshit, because I torqued it to spec. So it's going to need to be tighter. The question is, I guess, do I have to bust out the ratchet straps, or since I have the jack right here, can I get away with using that? Alright, well, that's back together, so hopefully it won't fall apart when we drop this on the scales, weigh it, and then put it on the dollies and get it ready to push into place. So I tried putting it back together with the recommended torque. I tried putting it back together with higher than recommended torque, and you want to know why it keeps falling apart? Because I tore one of my ball joint boots on the lower control arm. So I put on aftermarket parts, and the original ball joint post is 0.71 inches, and the replacement aftermarket part, even though it's allegedly for my car, is 0.65. So now I've got to go back and take off the aftermarket control arms and put on the original ones with the broken dust boot until I can find a suitable replacement.
You do when no one sets my body on fire, and no one gives me shivers like you. Oh, no one does it better.
So I didn't record everything that I did till 2 in the morning last night, and then get back up at 6 and started back at it. Changed out the control arms back to the originals, and it still doesn't want to go in, and that sound in the video is just popping down. So I don't know where my shift knob went. That's a random problem. Where is it actually in there? Oh, it's in there and I can't see it. Never mind. Yeah. So I didn't record any of that, and I was thinking that I'd gotten them in deeply enough that if I was gentle, maybe. And apparently I was extremely optimistic about that. Because I was thinking if I could just nurse it onto the trailer, I'd be good. One more successful attempt later. All the oil that I spilled on the engine is burning off now. And apparently the transmission is badly misaligned. Shit. Yeah, doesn't want to go in reverse. Alright, 1 through 6 are fine. And as bad as things were at that point, it's hard to imagine them getting much worse, but it turns out that there is always room for things to get worse. As you may have noticed, I don't do a lot of recording when I'm working furiously, because obviously it takes time to set up the camera and do all these things, and when I'm on a deadline, sometimes that's not really an option. So I don't have video of a lot of my final furious attempts to get the car moving. And what I really don't have video of, as much as it would be hilarious to have, is video of me trying to get the car on a trailer by myself using gravity and a come-along and the truck as obviously the tow vehicle, and then the Volvo to keep one end of the car secured, because I knew that I didn't want it to roll downhill uncontrollably. So I was going to kind of get it turned around and then kind of use gravity to get onto the trailer. And unfortunately, at one point I discovered the hard way that the parking brake was not functioning well enough to keep the car from moving on anything but the most level surfaces. At which point the car rolled down the hill and did a little bit of rallying without me. Yeah. Despite that, I did eventually manage to get the car on the trailer in a more controlled fashion, got it over to the mechanic. It turns out that the drive down the driveway managed to pull the half shaft out of the transmission. It may not have been fully engaging to begin with, he thinks, was the problem, and since it's an open differential, it's just, once one of the half shafts isn't connected, it's just not going to go anywhere. So we got everything back together and got on the road to Cincinnati, and hopefully we'll find out next episode what happened with the cage. This is the closest I'll ever have come to having any kind of cliffhanger. Will the car get a cage? Will the car make it to Cincinnati even in the first place? Will we decide that this whole season was just a dream, Dallas style? We'll find out in a couple more weeks. See you then. Well, the good news